This morning I'm going to be talking about links in the spiritual chain. But I want to share something with you, something that I think is reflective of synchronicity. And I'm not quite sure what it's all about, but I know it's been very beautiful. It started, I believe it was Friday evening, and I was watching some news channel. I think it was 2020 or 6060 or something like that. And they were reviewing the history of people that were climbing Mount Everest. And it was a documentary and very intense. And I don't remember what year this occurred, this particular climbing event took place, but there are several lives lost, and they focused on a woman from Canada that was had not prepared herself very well, and ultimately she lost her life just by a couple of wrong decisions, not by a lack of preparation, because she was really strong and showed grit. But I like to watch any kind of program that has to do with Mount Everest or any of the mountains in the Himalayan mountain range. And so even though, part of the outcome was sad, it was just, the views were absolutely incredible, going clear up to the top of Mount Everest. And then the irony, and this is where the synchronicity comes in. I guess it was Saturday, and I watched maybe it was Saturday evening, I watched a movie. I downloaded the movie for $5.99, which is always tricky. You never know whether that's going to be a good movie or not, but I just had a sense about it, and the movie was titled 1 Mile High. I thought, wow, this is interesting. And the movie started, and it was riveting. It was about a family in Taiwan and who had just lost a young boy. And his brother, who knew about the boy's dream, which was to get to the Himalayan mountains, decided that he was going to live that dream for his brother. So he flew from Taiwan to India and began his bicycle journey. And the movie was an hour and a half long, taking you all the way through India, over to Tibet, and finally up into some of the mountains in the Himalayan range. And, all his experiences and the intensity and the magnificence of the mountains and the harshness of the mountains and the weather and the people who he met, and the kindness of so many, and his illnesses along the way, and right to his accomplishment for his brother, and it was just so incredible. It was so beautiful. And then, as synchronicity oftentimes happens, I was reading an email from a medical astrologer that I really admire, and she started talking about a man whose name is Sven, S-V-E-N, Hedin, H-E-D-I-N. And this was a man who in the early 1900s went on several expeditions to the Himalayan mountains and wrote about it. So I immediately go to Amazon.com to look up this author's name and found several books by him. 2 of them were his expeditions through the Himalayan mountains for $1.99 each. There's a message going on here. And here today I'm talking about links in the spiritual chain, which is hierarchy, and hierarchy is always related to the Himalayan mountains and to the Gobi Desert and Shambhala. So it's just like coming full circle. So I hope that you have experiences like this. I think experiences like this are affirming that you are right where you are supposed to be. You know, instead of off to the right or off to the left or lagging behind, that you're just right where you're supposed to be. So this morning's talk is inspired once again, like last Sunday, from a book called Ashrams by Torkim Serdarian. When we say the phrase links of the spiritual chain, we are really talking about something perhaps a little bit more poetic called the golden chain. The golden chain not only refers to the hierarchy, but also the links in the chain of hierarchy. We are told that we are all links, and so this is something I would like you to think about and remember, that we are all links in this living successive chain that starts with an atom and then disappears into the highest, most supreme light in cosmic space. And you see this picture, you know, can you picture yourself as that atom evolving through time and eventually disappearing into the highest, most supreme light? I hope you really listen to this fact, because it not only gives us a sense of soul importance, but also a sense of direction. Something that many, many people find missing in their life, and a lot of teenage children missing a sense of direction, looking for that sense of direction, or looking to find somebody or a teaching or even a group that will reflect what it means to have a sense of direction, you know, in your life. And this teaching certainly gives us a sense of direction, but this is more than, you know, where we're going for the next 10 years. This is a direction for our divine spark, for our continuously incarnating human soul. It gives us direction into our future, not just this life, but lives to come. I think it's also a reality for us to realize that we are not just a person that was born randomly, you know, without direction or purpose or importance, but in fact, just the opposite. But we do have to find we do have to find that magnetic center. And how do we do that? Finding a magnetic center means that we have to search, which means we are called seekers, which means that we start our life wherever that beginning point is, not necessarily at birth, but a moment of awakening, responding to a call, that then we begin to search. And what is so beautiful, there is a element within the human being that is going to be drawn to that magnetic center. That center which is going to, once found, ignite our life's purpose. It will become like an energy source for us that will continually pulse inspiration, insight, energy, enthusiasm, in such a way that it just guides us through the rest of our life. Now, so we have this magnetic center, which then has its higher correspondence. And we could say that higher correspondence would be the North Pole, or the north axis of this magnetic point where the soul is trying to be pulled to and then anchored, so that we then have that innate sense of where we are going. So I think this is an important point to remember, that we are going to recognize this fact and apply it to ourselves, to realize that that we are a link in the living, successive chain of life, which is headed to the most supreme light. So for me, this past weekend, imagine, starting out by looking at these incredibly dedicated, direction-oriented young people, and they were young compared to me, and climbing up this extremely challenging mountain. And at that time, believe it or not, there were 500 people trying to get to the summit of Mount Everest. It was truly remarkable. Anyway, so here I had Friday night and Saturday night and yesterday, and ultimately finding, randomly in this email about Sven Hedin, Hedin, about these two books. So now I have a lot of reading ahead of me, to read about a person who had this incredible experience, challenging, difficult, and yet revelationary, of going through the Himalayan mountains. And having been there, having been in India, having been in Sikkim, having been in Darjeeling, and opening up my window in the morning in this wonderful, beautiful, kind of backwoods motel, but every morning opening up the shutters to the Kanchenjunga Mountains. Even being able to see those mountains in that time of year was miraculous, because usually the mountains are totally covered by clouds, the Kanchenjunga Mountains. But this miracle, the whole townspeople in Darjeeling were talking about, you could see the treasures of the mountain because the clouds had lifted. So this is, the affirmation, that you're in the right place at the right time. When we when we truly have experiences like this, I think that it teaches us to, maybe this is kind of coarse, but it teaches us to take our head out of the bag and really look around and about us, and not be so mired into materialism and our problems and our thises and that's, but to see what is really gifts that are being given to us as we make this journey, to the mountaintop, let's say. Okay, the golden chain. Let me go back to this, because this is something I really enjoyed writing. So to realize that we are a link in the living, successive chain of life, which is taking us to the most supreme light, then it is my hope that we are going to treat ourselves a little bit better, that we're going to treat our friends and our family and our co-workers a little bit better, to recognize the divinity within ourselves, within one another, to be more respectful to one another, and then to begin to move forward no matter the obstacles in your life, no matter the obstacles. So this is my hope for us. The term golden chain is a very esoteric term used at initiatic levels. Every link of this chain is golden. So if we think of the word golden, now we know there's something special about this word, golden, the golden chain. Chain is a very complicated word if we look at it from a exoteric point of view. But golden kind of tempers that word, chain. Golden, what is golden? Golden, gold. Something that radiates beauty. So what kind of a chain is golden and radiates beauty? Well, the book says the chain is golden, which means each master. So here's a symbolism here, that each master is pure and beautiful in relation to every other link, forming a golden relationship. Isn't that beautiful? So I thought, okay, I'm going to build golden relationships from now on. And where I don't have time to get into this, there are certain relationships in every person's life that's not golden. Some people believe that this is karmic reckoning and you have to deal with it. I don't happen to be one of those people. Over my many, many years of life, I have discovered I can learn through joy almost better than I can learn from harmful, hurtful relationships. So take a look at your relationships. And if it's not a heavy karmic relationship, in other words, if it is one that is very irritating, one that's harmful to you, one that is destructive to your well-being, consider walking away from that relationship, because it can be too much of a burden and anchor you to a place that prevents you from going to that magnetic center. Okay? Okay. Going back here. We also learned something else, which is that there is a principle called the recognition of the higher link. It is fairly normal and fairly healthy and very healthy on the path of discipleship to recognize the higher link. In fact, there's a chapter in the book titled Challenge for Discipleship, again by Torquem Serdarian, which talks a great deal about how the great light leads. But this chapter, or these elements from the book that I was inspired by, brings us into another point of view, and that is it emphasizes the importance of all links. Something that people in positions of leadership responsibility don't always follow. But this is the point. In recognizing the higher link and then the lower link, we see that human society, humanity, the hierarchy itself, and still higher beings on all planes are all part of the hierarchy. So that's something to think about. As we think about the golden chain, we can also think about the chain within the golden chain and the links of that chain. We're going to think about the chain within the golden chain and the links of that chain. As we think about the idea of the chain, we see that each link is essential to the well-being of the chain. Each individual is ultimately important in the scheme of things. For example, you peer into the group life and recognize that a number of people in the group life have taken on certain responsibilities. And in their responsibilities, their co-workers recognize the value that person holds within the chain of links within the group. Right? Are you with me? Okay. As the responsible person improves within his or her position, so does his value within the link of the chain. Now, contrary to that, any link that is broken, what happens? it breaks the chain. Okay. Because each of us is a link in that chain, we participate in all the joy and in all the suffering, in all the successes and all the failures of one another. When this happens to you, if you are a member of a group, just like if you're a member of a family, then you know that you are part of the consciousness of that family or that group. This means that you are part of the group mind, or that means we are part of the group soul. If, on the other hand, we are immune to the joy and sufferings of one another, then our heart is not part of the heart of the group. The book reads this. It says, the law of the hierarchy is that no one can be separated from the chain. We will see that when we kill, we are killing an essential link in the chain, a living golden link that will take millions of years to replace. When we consider the group life, and those in the life who have certain positions of leadership, if they suddenly leave the group or handle their position in an irresponsible manner, it is in that manner both types of leaders are killing their essential link in the chain of the group life, taking the group sometimes many, many years to replace that link, if at all possible. So the group life is derived from a group network, okay, a group network, which has taken a long time to build itself. So what does a long time mean? It means many incarnations, many lifetimes for such a group to build such a network. And this then becomes a network of psychic energy. The threads of such a group are built by the substance of mutual love, respect, and care. By thoughts based on sacrificial service, and by action intended to lift burdens from one another's shoulders. Isn't this just amazing? To me, this is just the opposite of looking out for moi. And there's so many titles of books these days, that are focusing on the one. Not the oneness of life, but the individual, the self-centered. How to build your ego, how to make yourself more important, how to increase your power. But that's not what the teaching is about, and that's not the path that we are about. We are about this, about building threads of a group that lasts from one lifetime to the next, to the next, to the next. And when we go back and our soul is drawn into that magnetic center, it is my hope that you are beginning to recognize now that that center is not an isolated location. Okay, this is where you return to your group. Now, if I had the ability to create a hologram in space or out in the air here, you have an imagination, so let's do that. And let's take, for example, that we have found this magnetic center, and we see this like a beam of light that is going through the subplanes of life, and at a particular level, on each subplane, there is another group, but it's bigger than the physical plane group. In the astral plane, there is a magnetic center that is creating this, it's holding like a taut line. And let me take a break here and say how to explain it better. If you're a musician and you've ever played a stringed instrument, or if you've ever played a piano and you've watched a piano tuner come in and tune that piano of yours, you know that the string that connects the key from this point to that point to make a noise has to be, I don't know the right words there, held to such a tension, with such a tension that it radiates when you sound that note, you know, a particular musical note or sound. And if that tension is not correct, then the note is flat or sharp or not heard at all. Well, so it's very similar to that. When the group has built a network and it is anchored in that magnetic center, then that string or beam of light, which is very intense and very vibratory in resonance, takes the consciousness of the group into that next greater magnetic point, and then higher and higher and higher, depending upon the construction of the network that's been built by the souls of these individuals. Phew. Okay, I hope that's clear. The goal of such groups is to provide the golden chain of the hierarchy with a magnetic network by which members of the group can attract subtle impressions from the hierarchy and cooperate with its plan on earth. It is from the subtle impressions from the hierarchy that certain responsible positions within the group life come into existence. It is also from the striving of the members of such a group that magnetically attracts the member into responsible positions. Such a group has become like a fiery center in the body of humanity, and thus a link in the golden chain. This is why it is the most terrible crime to create disunity in groups. Disunity, true groups. Disunity occurs when a member of the group kills the link in the chain of the group. Those who sever themselves from the group destroy parts of the network, or the links in the chain of the group life. That's the network, and causes psychic damage to the soul of the group. Isn't that interesting? Buddha pronounced 7 cardinal sins, one of which was to cause disunity into a spiritual group dedicated to the service of humanity. However, it is not only damage to the soul of the group that occurs, but also to the person who is damaging, who is killing the link on the chain. We are told that those who fall into such a cardinal sin lose their psychic energy and become occupied by dark entities, which gradually lead them to physical, moral, and spiritual destruction. This is why I strongly believe, if we go back a moment, to the importance of creating golden relationships. And if you have a dissonance with a person who is close to you or in your family or in a proximity to your life that is causing you irritation and frustration and fear and so forth, then you have to stop everything you're doing and make sure that that tie is disconnected. Because that tie will influence the network of your family or the network of your group, which leads to physical, moral, and spiritual destruction. Heavy. We are told that a traitor or a slanderer will never again find a chance to relate to the network, but life after life will be repelled by the psychic energy circulating within the group network. And remember, that group network is not just physical. It's astral, it's mental, it's Buddhic, and perhaps even greater. 3 or 5 people united in one goal, in one vision, in one plan can perform a miracle. Greater revelation comes to groups than to individuals. Groups of people can serve the hierarchy more effectively than separate individuals. Now imagine where one of those 5 people becomes irresponsible in their leadership responsibilities, and imagine what it can do to such a group. It creates horrific rent in the network of the threads of the group. So each person represents a thread. Each person represents a thread in the network of the group. Sometimes certain threads of the group network are poisoned by imperil. Imperil accumulates from the animosity and irritation that members show toward the other, toward each other. And when such disrespect and irritation continues, then what happens? Now the network gradually weakens with the imperil, and a time comes that the leader can no longer provide the psychic energy to repair it. So this is why we have begun over the last few weeks, before we come to a meeting, we just burn a little bit of sage, to cleanse the room. So as we come into this beautiful sanctuary, it elevates our consciousness, gets us out of, any potential irritation that we might be bringing across the threshold, so that we can really just sit and enjoy and contemplate and feel blessed, to be in such an environment. But when such disrespect and irritation continues, and the network gradually weakens with imperil, then such a time comes that the leader can no longer provide the psychic energy to repair it. So how do these things happen? That breaks the chain in the ladder of the group life. See, some people think that to be free means they can do anything that they want. Look, at what I do has nothing to do with the rest of you. This is my life, my life, my life, right? Don't our teenagers say that to us? Look at Mom, I understand, but this is my life. Until my life gets in trouble, and then where does my life go? Back to Mom and Dad, right? Yeah, don't we all know that? People say, I live in a democratic country, and I can kill people if I like. This pseudo-psychology, this pseudo-philosophy translates democracy in such a way that people become harmful. Every link has the power to exercise a certain amount of control over the next link. As above, so below. It is a chain reaction then. Every link is responsible for his own life, for the life above and the life below. If he does wrong, he deprives the chain of energy. that would circulate to the next link, and he deprives the next link below, or the link below, because he is not, what? He is not nourishing it. Each link nourishes the higher link by transmitting the energy flowing to it from the one below. If a person breaks this link, he breaks a law of nature and creates disturbances and distortions in the chain of the group and of hierarchy. The book tells us that we must support each other in such a way that we help elevate those below and cooperate with the higher links that are leading us forward. When we assimilate and understand this concept, our lives would totally change. Yes, there are those links that are degenerating, that weaken the chain with poison and pollution, but it is our duty to make each link really healthy, because our health depends upon the health of the other links. The book says many times we fail in life because we do not recognize our true value. We do many wrong, destructive, and self-defeating things because we do not see our worth. When we come to understand that we are great treasures, beautiful golden links, we are less likely to do those things that destroy our reputation, that destroy our standing in the group life and so forth. We can no longer do these things because we find what? Our value. We find our value. So really think about this today and throughout the week, and as we move into the Virgo full moon energy. For example, if you hold a certain position in the group life, a responsible position, you won't do certain things because of that position or because of your family and so on. You recognize that you have some value, and because you see your value, you're going to manifest that value in your life. Don't you do this? Yeah. Here's another example. Let's say that you are part of the staff of a spiritual group. Because you have some value, you are going to treat your position with respect. You will treat those who have dealings with the office with respect, so you can increase their value, but also your own. The person realizes that because she has value, the other links must also have value. See the links in the chain? You can ask yourself, how can I do the best job, live the best life, so that the higher link and the lower link that I link together have a great life? We must try to increase our value, making ourselves jewels in the crown. We must say, let me increase my value so that I increase the value of other people. So, I was thinking about this weekend and the book and the movies and the 2020 60-60, Mount Everest climb. What did I walk away from? With all of this incredible beauty. And that was endurance. It was determination. It was don't retire. It was don't give up, but work harder than ever before to get to that mountain top. It was so inspiring. So at the beginning of the talk, I mentioned the phrase, recognition of the higher link. The higher link is a door to higher levels. When the link is cut, one denies himself. For example, when a son denies his mother, he denies himself. Master Moria says that any link doing something harmful shakes the whole chain. What an image. I think when people are other-oriented, as our disciples, they naturally understand this principle, that any link doing something harmful shakes the whole chain. It is the more self-centered person that sees only his or her reflection in others, sees only his or her reflection in the mirror of the chain. He does not understand that what he does affects the whole chain. I know we're going to run a few minutes over. I hope that's okay. Is it? Okay, okay, good. We have a democratic vote here, okay. The idea of the chain awakens what? In me, anyway, it awakens the idea of devotion. Devotion in our minds, devotion to the higher link. Devotion is a path through which a person can change his or her location and become the next higher link. Devotion is a process of identification with the next higher link. A person devotes himself and aspires because he or she sees how beautiful that next link is and wants to pattern himself after that beauty. So we have all these images of beauty around us, our pictures on our altars, on our walls, even in nature. This admiration and devotion pushes us to progress. So let me close with this. In the concept of the chain, there is power. If an individual is together within himself, then he or she is strong. If group members together and in their togetherness are strong, then the group is strong and the individual in that group is strong. See how that works? Okay. Each separate link is a strength. And by linking together the entire chain, then each link becomes stronger and more powerful. Okay? If individual links in the chain fight against one another, the whole chain weakens and loses power. So this is something, and that's the end. This is something to really consider, no matter what your station in life is, no matter what group means to you, whether it is a family, a spiritual group like ours, a community, or even a nation. Let us consider what we just learned this morning and move ahead.